Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the PodUp with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. PodUp, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to an edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to crank it up with my man Dallas Baker here. Join us from the Titan MR hotline. Good morning, Dallas. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Can't complain, my man. Let's before we talk about your coaching career and all that good stuff, let's go back to your days. You grew up in New Smyrna Beach. Was a stud football player there. I think you played a little hoops too. Talk a little bit about, I think I read you were supposed to be in Coach Spurrier's final recruiting class. I don't know if it was some academic deals or what have you. You ended up going to a prep school up in Massachusetts. But talk a little bit about what made you want to be a Gator and what was it like being recruited by Coach Spurrier?
Okay, so my uncle is Wes Chandler. That's my mom's brother. We're very close. He was like he's like a father figure to me. So I would say probably around maybe 6 or 7 years old when I really started to understand football. Everyone in my family was rooting for the Gators because my uncle played there. I had a cousin that walked on there. Other family members went to school there. So it was basically like you had no choice but to be a Gator fan. And then when I really started paying attention, because I started playing Pop Warner football, I started watching guys like yourself and Jack Jackson and on. So it made me say, hey, I'm going to be a Florida Gator when I grow up, just like any other kid would. And then once I got into high school, good Lord blessed me to have coaches like Jerry Odom, who also played for the Florida Gators.
That's right.
To help me understand the game even more. And then Coach Spurrier came to my parents' house and we talked. And for me, it was like seeing a movie star because I was a diehard Gator watching him on TV. And it's like, oh, my God, like Steve Spurrier sitting in my parents' living room. So, and everyone knows Coach Spurrier. He walks through the door and he gives me the famous, hey, my man. And then that just set it off from there. I'm like, oh, man, like this doesn't seem real. So that's actually how I ended up saying, I'm going to the University of Florida. And I had some test score issues. My grades were fine. I just struggled with the test score. So I ended up signing, but because of my test score, I ended up having to do a prep school year at Northfield Mount Hermon. And then I came back, I want to say it was like halfway through the school year, and I ended up being a prop. So thank the good Lord it all worked out.
No doubt about it. You ended up playing mostly at Florida with Coach Ron Zook, and then Urban comes in. Talk a little bit about the energy that Coach Zook coached with.
Oh, man. So everyone will tell you Coach Zook is a player's coach. I mean, every day he had energy. I remember one year I sprained my ankle and he actually got into a water skiing accident where he messed his ankle up. And I'm in the whirlpool first, and the entire time he just messed with me like, oh, you can go harder than that, and just messing around. So in my head, I'm like, man, wait till this old guy get in here. I'm going to give it back to him. And still to this day, I have not seen anyone run against waves the way he ran against the waves. And I'm like, man, this guy, energy, his work ethic, everything is unbelievable. So we give a bunch of credit to Coach Zook because the way he brought all us guys in that helped won that national championship, that was a part of his class and just the energy he had every day.
Yeah, we're speaking with Dallas Baker on the Titan MR hotline. Dallas is now the wide receiver coach at Marshall University, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But let's talk about your career at Florida. Is there one game, and I don't know which one it may be, but is there one game that stands out in your mind that you'll remember the rest of your life, Dallas?
Whew. Probably not one game. I mean, there's a couple of games that I talk about a bunch. Of course, I always talk about my freshman year when we played Miami, just the atmosphere and how we had those guys. We should have closed it. I actually was talking about it today with the coach here. Of course, the national championship game, the game against Alabama when we lost, I want to say 34-3, because I always talk about like how that was actually a turning point in my career to become a leader. I never wanted to lose like that again, especially not having that Gator patch on the front of my jersey. Maybe playing LSU for homecoming. I don't know. I can't really point out one, so I'll just say like just playing football in the swamp and being a Gator. That's something I cherish for the rest of my life.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. Talk a little bit about, Chris Leak was your quarterback. Tim played a little bit your senior year. He was mostly a fullback in those days, his freshman year. But, people forget Chris Leak is the all-time leading passer at the University of Florida. I mean, that is amazing that it kind of goes unnoticed, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And Chris has a soft spot with me just because the fact a lot of times people thought Chris was arrogant, and that wasn't the case, no way, shape, or form. He was just a quiet guy. And so he was close with the receivers, especially the older ones or the ones that came in with him, the ones he would throw the ball to. So our brotherhood actually grew to where we saw he was a goofy guy. He cared for everyone, but just his ability to pass the ball, to read coverages. Like Chris is a coach on the field, and a lot of people, I guess they wouldn't think so because, I mean, Tebow is held at a certain standard. I understand that, I don't care how everybody else sees him. That's always going to be my little brother because he actually played with us. We didn't play with him. He was a freshman. We were seniors. But as Chris Chris, I mean, he's a quarterback that should always be talked about when we talk about Gator football and we talk about quarterbacks. So I feel like just because Tebow came in backwards, and no way, shape, or form am I talking bad about Tebow. I love Tebow. Like, I talked to his dad a bunch just because how I live my life. I mean, he's like a mentor to me, but I just feel like Chris is kind of forgotten about sometimes.
No, I agree. So, Dallas, what was your favorite team to play against while you were at Florida? I mean, was there one rivalry game that you enjoyed the most?
So I would probably have to say Florida State coming into my career. And when I said I want to be a Gator, just because probably out of my 12 siblings, me and my brother are probably the closest. And I can't believe I just said that. I finally admitted it. But he became a Florida State fan at some point. So we would go back and forth. And so I would always let him have it. But I would probably have to say Tennessee just because the history behind that with the slap. For years, I played it down because, Shane, this is different than any other interview. Like, you played the game also at a high level. And like I said, like, I hold you to a certain standard because you're part of the reason why I went to Florida. And I told you that. So you understand that coaches tell us to say certain things. And that's why I would always play it down because I was coached to play it down. But Tennessee, I took pride in beating them all the time just because of the whole slap. I shouldn't have done that, but everyone knows it wasn't handled fairly.
Yeah. Speaking with Dallas Baker here on the Titan MR hotline, Dallas Baker, the touchdown maker. Dude, you got a national championship ring and a Super Bowl ring. I played 14 years in the NFL. I didn't even sniff even a championship game and, didn't get a national title, obviously, in college. Man, that's got to be pretty cool, especially when you go out recruiting, right?
Oh man, that's a blessing. Like, yes, it is. It's I will say that it's a great feeling. Again, you grow up as a kid saying, I'm gonna win a national championship, I'm gonna win a Super Bowl. When both of them happen, still to this day, it's been a while, and it still seem unreal. And I'm one of those guys who still watch film from it, still talk about it. I don't care who likes it, because that is a blessing. Like you said, you guys try to accomplish those all the time. And I was able to accomplish both of those with the help of the good Lord. Like, man, I'm never, ever not going to talk about being a Super Bowl champion and a national champion.
At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Dallas Baker on the Titan MRI hotline. So, Dallas, you go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the great organizations in all of football. As I mentioned, you win a Super Bowl. You play a little Canadian ball. We got a Facebook Live question here for you, brought to you by Melvin Law, where you matter most. It comes from Evan. Evan wants to know, Dallas, what got you into coaching?
The impact that my coaches had on my life growing up, even from Pop Warner football. I mean, the coaches I had, I knew from the jump they had my best interest. They were trying to help me become a better football player, but most of all, a man. And I would stay the night over some of my coach's house because their sons were on the team, and just to watch how they would interact with their son and how they would treat me. And then when I got to high school, the same as that thing. And then college, like from Coach Dixon to Coach Fedor, and then Coach G, Coach Meyer, Coach Zook, Coach Strong. I could go on and on. Just the coaches I had, yeah, they were great coaches, but more than anything, they cared about us and they showed it. So that's when I was like, you know what? I want to be a coach so I can have the same type of relationship, so I can make a difference in the world in a positive way.
Yeah, and speaking of being a coach, who would you say, obviously you coach the receivers, you coach a position that you played, which I think is, there's some guys that coach positions they didn't play, and I don't believe in that, but you've played the position at a very high level. Is there one coach that you take a little bit from? Is it Coach Dixon, Coach Gonzalez, from teaching your wide receivers? Do you also take some stuff from Urban Meyer and Ron Zook that you learned as well?
Yeah, so Coach Meyer was, of course, a receivers coach before he became a head coach. So he had a lot to say in the meeting rooms about the receivers. And majority of the time he was right. And then he coached Coach G at Colorado State. So Coach G was a receiver. So both of those guys I take from, but I would say I just about take everything from Coach G. Everyone knows I love Coach Meyer. That's like my dad. I love Coach G. That's like my dad. But like I just about copy everything Coach G does. So 2 years ago, I actually visited home, which is the University of Florida for me. That's home. And I was with Coach Hevesy and I was with Coach G. And we were sitting down, we were talking. And we were talking about guys doing interviews and the way they coach. And Coach Mullen came in, like, while we were eating or whatever, and he was telling me how he was proud of me, that I grew up. And I'm like, I mean, I am 30-something years old. I'm not the 20, 21-year-old kid you knew. And then he started laughing. And then he was like, and I heard you doing a great job coaching. And Coach Hevesy goes, all he does is copy off of Billy. And then we all start, because that's exactly what I do. Like, I love Coach G. Like, there's not a week that go by that we don't talk. I mean, I text him on Saturday, and I'm going to be honest because we have this type of relationship. So I text him on Saturday, and he didn't text me back till Monday. So I haven't responded to him yet. But that's our relationship. Like I said, that's like my dad. Like, I love him. Like, I love Coach G. People see I cry when I talk about him because, man, Coach G has been there for me through thick and thin. Like, like I can't talk highly enough about Coach G.
Yeah, that's the great thing about coaching, man. And what's going to be, 15, 20 years from now, all those kids you're coaching at Marshall are going to be saying the same thing about you. Dallas, so when you're out on the recruiting trail, obviously you run into Coach Gonzalez and other guys that you've been around. Does Marshall, is it one of these deals where you may call Coach Gonzalez and say, hey, take a look at this guy. I don't think he's a Power 5 type receiver, but do you think he's good enough to play for us? Do you ever ask those type of questions to him?
Not really. So when I first started working here, speaking of how great Coach G is, so in 2017, I started working here, and I got a call from every coach that ever coached me, especially the big dogs. Like, every one of them called me, congratulated me. It was like, welcome to the family. welcome to the fraternity. And Coach G, you know, he helped me through the process, and he called me and he said, recruit. And I'm like, yeah, Coach, I know that. I know that's a major part of me. I played for Coach Meyer. Like, I would hear how he would talk to you guys about recruiting. And I said, what's going to be weird is if me and you recruit the same person. And Coach G actually got upset with me. He stopped me and he said, if you have an opportunity to take a kid from me and to stump me in the ground, you better do it. I'm like, yeah, but Coach G, he's like, there is no but. He's like, there is no but. He's like, you have a job to do. If you could take a kid from me, take a kid from me. So we don't really talk about recruiting just because he knows I understand the expectations. Now, I will say this. He pulled a slick one on me. So he called me, asked me about a kid. I gave all my input, and then the kid committed to the University of Florida a day after he offered him. And I was like, yeah, actually, I'm the young pup, and he's the old vet in this. So that has happened.
That's great. Back to your uncle, Wes Chandler. You know, it's interesting. And you also play with Percy. A lot of people think Percy is the most dynamic player that has ever played at Florida with the ball in their hands. But a lot of the old people say it's Wes Chandler. Did you ever get to see a lot of footage of Wes playing at Florida?
Yes. My grandmother had a bunch of tapes that because he would move around, you know, and so he would leave the tapes there, and I would watch those tapes. Growing up, the late 80s, 90s, you know, Karate Kid was around. I would watch those tapes more than I would watch Karate Kid or anything else. Like, there was not a morning I wouldn't wake up, eat a bowl of cereal, and pop in one of those tapes and watch it. And I never really understood that my uncle was Wes Chandler. Like, people would talk about him to the point when I got to high school, we would actually get into it a bunch. Like, he would stay on me about my grades, and he would ask one or two questions about football just to ask, but he was more concerned about life and school. But when he would ask about football, I'd be like, I remember I would say things like, I already know that. Like, I'm better than you at this point. And he would laugh, but I was serious because I never really understood. Wes Chandler was my uncle until I got to college. And of course, I got humbled because now with all these other 3, 4, 5-star guys, and I actually got a chance to see how good my uncle really was.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. And, you know, it's interesting when people compare him and Percy. Dallas, let me ask you this. Being a former receiver at a major university who won a national title, got to play in the NFL as well, when you sit in your meeting rooms with your other wide receivers, every receiver wants the damn ball, right? You know, I'm wide open on every play. So how do you – I'm sure you were one of those guys too. Come back to the huddle. Chris, I'm wide open. Why are you not throwing it to me?
That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah. So how do you handle your guys when they're bitching and complaining, you know, when they come back to the huddle or, you know, nobody even huddles anymore. So when they're sitting in the meeting and y'all are going over practice tape and so-and-so is not getting the football and he's complaining and pouting, how do you as their receiver coach handle that now?
It's two things. And one of them is so simple, but I feel like I'm given a major key. And I've only been coaching 6 years now. But a lot of people don't understand this, which is amazing to me. But I see now why it's a major key. But so I would have to say the first one is a lot of guys, if you have played this game, and again, you understand, if you played this game, you already get their attention. But the second part is, and a lot of people don't understand this, and that's why I say I'm giving a major key, not to sound arrogant. If you have a relationship with these players, you could just about get them to do whatever you want because they trust you, and not in a negative way. I'm not saying that, but I've played this, so they respect me. But the relationship I have with them, they trust me. Like, look, don't complain. You know, just continue working. The ball will find you. It's just as simple as that. It's all about your relationship. When you don't have a relationship with your players and you try to get them to buy something, you know how hard that is. And That comes from Coach G. I remember Coach Meyer in the team meeting. This was probably a month after he had been there. And he asked us, he said, so how many guys in here trust me? And, of course, everybody raised their hands because, you know, that's what you do. When your coach asks you a question like that, you raise your hand even if you lie. And Coach Meyer said, well, I don't trust any of you guys because I haven't been around you guys long enough. He was like, now, our relationship need to grow to where we could trust one another, and you guys shouldn't trust me because we haven't been together long enough. And when he said that, that just has stuck with me for life. Like, how do I walk in a room and I tell my receivers, don't do this, don't do that? And you get what I'm saying, Shane? Like, how can you trust me if I don't have a relationship with you? Like, I can't sit here and come into work, coach you, and then work is over, just go home and you don't hear from me. And, like, it doesn't work like that. So I thank God that I had coaches that showed me if you build a relationship with a player, that's where trust builds.
No doubt about it. Speaking with Dallas Baker, you can follow him on Twitter at Coach DBaker81, wide receiver coach for the Marshall Thundering Herd. A few more minutes here with Dallas. So, Dallas, you got into coaching at, is it Warner University down in South Florida?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so tell us how Doc Holliday, who was on the staff here under Urban when the national title teams and stuff, he's the head coach, if people don't know, at Marshall. So how did that whole deal transpire? How did you become a Marshall wide receiver coach?
Okay, so not to make the story long, but so I had played arena football in 2013 and 2014. My daughter was growing up fast, and I was missing out on a lot of stuff just because they couldn't always come and live with me because my daughter's getting ready to start preschool, and we wanted her to grow up in the state of Florida. So I felt like I was missing out on things, so I retired. And I'm like, I'm going to get into coaching. And one day I was at the gym, I was working out, and my old baseball coach was at the gym I was at, and Coach Moskovich. And he asked me what I was doing, and I told him, well, I want to get into college coaching. I just retired. And he said, well, his son David is who I grew up with. He said, well, David, they have a wide receiver spot opened up at Warner University. And both my parents are preachers, and I was at the process of getting my relationship right with God. I didn't always live that way. And it's amazing how that happened because I was really chasing after God, getting on the right path, and here's this Christian university with a wide receiver spot open. So I go there, and I'll be honest, a lot of guys are telling me there's no way you could become a Division I coach working at an NAIA school. You need to go somewhere and be a GA, such and such. And I would hear that a bunch, but I would tell everyone there's three things. The type of character I have makes people like me. Like, I'm not a bad person. I'm like, secondly, I have God on my side. And third, I have all these connections. Like, it's going to happen. So I just bust my butt and worked. And then not even 2 years, a year and a half later, I'm walking out to spring practice, and I left my special team script. And I'm like, oh, let me run back in. I run back in, and my phone is ringing. And usually, of course, I'm ignored, but I look down, it's Coach Meyer. I'm like, Coach Meyer's calling. So I answer. He's like, hey, Marshall just, they have a wide receiver spot opening. It was like, Doc is going to call you. I'm like, well, Coach, I'm actually going out to practice. And he says, in an arrogant way, you know, Coach Meyer, he's like, did you not just hear what I told you? Doc is going to call you. Keep your phone on you, or you to tell your coach, hey, Coach Meyer said Doc Holliday is going to call him and he needs to answer this. I'm like, I can't just tell my boss this. So I sneak my cell phone out, which is bad. I sneak my cell phone, I have it in my pocket, and it rings. So I tell my GA, I'm like, hey, pay attention to this part of the script. I have to run to the bathroom. And I jog like I'm going to the bathroom, and I answer the phone, and Coach Holliday called me. He asked me how I was doing, and he was like, look, I'm going to fly you out tomorrow for an interview. Urban told me to interview. I'm like, Coach, you don't even have to fly me. I said, I'll get on the bike, and I'll ride the bicycle up to West Virginia all the way from Lake Wales, Florida, to show you how serious I'm about the job. And I think that struck him because I got up there the next day. He gave me the job, and he talked to the team, told them all about me, how he coached me. And he told that part of the story. And that's when I knew, okay, that was the part that stuck with him. And it was the truth. I would have rolled a bicycle up there. For opportunities, like I was always taught, never turn an opportunity down.
That's awesome. I love how you snuck the phone out there and then you had to tell them you were going to the bathroom. That's great. Last thing for you. Y'all are playing football as well. The Marshall Thundering Herd. When's your first game? It's next week, right?
Yes, September 5th, we play EKU. A team we played 2 years ago in 2018. It was a close one, a really good FCS team. So we're looking forward to it.
Practice going well for you guys?
Yes, practice going well. Of course, it's a little different because you got to make sure safety comes first. So, like I said, like it's different because we've never had to do certain things that we're doing, but to give our team and the rest of our coaches credit, and that just shows that everyone wants to play. Like no one is complaining. And I'm gonna be honest with you, just because of who you are. I keep saying that, and hopefully you understand. Like you have played an impact on my life, whether you know it or not. But I was expecting people to complain. I haven't really been hearing that. So that shows me, like, first of all, everyone wants everyone to stay safe. No one wants anybody to have to deal with something negative from the virus. And then secondly, people, like, they want to play.
Yep, so, no doubt. Last thing for you, Dallas. I want to get your thoughts on Coach Mullen. He was your offensive coordinator when you played here. Y'all won a lot of games, championships. He's come back in 2 years, already won 21 games and 2 major bowl wins. Do you like the way the program's headed right now?
That's my guy there. And I'm not just saying it because he's the head coach. Like, we talked when he was at Mississippi State. Here's why Coach Mullen's my guy. First of all, he is a family person. And I said this when I came and talked to the team. We talk all the time. I actually talked to him on the phone 3 weeks ago. That's just who he is. But Coach Mullen loves his players. He loves his players' family. Like, so my first 2-3 years at Florida, I was struggling. And Coach Meyer, Coach G, all those guys came in. And we were in spring ball. I was having a good spring. And then one day, for some reason, like, I was focused, but I was dropping passes. I couldn't line up the right way. And it was because I was going back into the old Dallas Maker mode where I was making it bigger than what it was. And Coach G was getting on me. Coach Meyer was getting on me. And when practice was over, Coach Mullen, like, pulled me to the side. I'm like, all right, here we go. He's probably going to tell me I'm a backup now or yell at me. And Coach Mullen, he said this, and I tell him this all the time, Shane. He said, you think I'm going to keep throwing you ball if you drop it? And I gave an honest answer like any other player would. I was like, no, sir. It's like, what are you thinking? It's like, Dallas, you're 6'3", you're almost 210 pounds. You can run. You have the ability. I'm going to keep throwing you the ball because eventually something great is going to happen. And I looked, I'm like, what? So you telling me about it's okay if I drop the ball, like there's no pressure? Because that was my issue. And I've been told from coaches, never say you had confidence issues. Well, I'm to the point in my life where I don't care what those coaches tell me. Like, I'm going to be honest. Because 18 to 20, 21 years old at that time, everyone has confidence issues, whether it's off the field or on the field. So I disagree with that. So I had confidence issues. When he told me that, not to sound arrogant, but that's when I became Dallas Baker, the touchdown maker, like high school. Like, I had nothing to worry about. Like, every day I went out there with the help of Coach G, making me feel like I was T.O. and Randy Moss, but knowing that I had Coach Mullen in my corner. So when I saw he was back there, I texted him and I'm like, Gator football is going to get back how it used to be. And he just put laughing out loud, but I was right, just because he has something about him to make you want to play for him, to just everything.
Yep, I agree, man. Well, that is Dallas Baker, the touchdown maker. My man, you're going to be a star coaching receivers no matter where you are. Good luck to the Marshall Thundering Herd this year. And we're going to be following y'all, and we'll have you back on here once the season's over, buddy.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you for everything.
Yep, that is Dallas Baker. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take our first time out of the program. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Weeby Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Rap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakau Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Aver and Smith, Personal Injury Attorneys, Orange Theory Fitness, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Good morning and welcome to an edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to crank it up with my man Dallas Baker here joining us from the Titan MR Hotline. Good morning, Dallas. How are you?
Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. We're going to now go back to the Titan MR Hotline, and we're going to be joined by our good friend Johnny Cornell, better known around the world as JC. Good morning, JC. How are you?
Hey, Shane. Good, happy Monday morning. I'm sure the weekend was great. Did you have a good sports watching weekend there, Shane?
I did. We might as well talk about it. We both love the PGA Tour and the BMW Championship there at Olympia Fields, which I played that course many times when I was up with the Bears. I loved it. They set it up like a U.S. Open. These boys struggled all week, but good gracious, what an ending!
So much different than last week, wasn't it? When everybody was just dropping birdies everywhere as if they were playing an executive course. And I just love the way, as you said, the course was set up. It was difficult. I saw a lot of plus numbers, and I like birdies, don't get me wrong, but it was fun to see these guys challenged. And obviously with the way it ended with Dustin Johnson forcing the playoff with a 43-foot double breaker, I mean, that just blew my mind. And that putt was every bit as tough as the one Rahm made, I think, which I didn't see, actually. I was listening to it on PGA Golf radio on Sirius, and he had I guess it was an 8-foot breaker or something like that.
Oh, it was a 60 something footer. It was 1,000 times harder than the putt Dustin Johnson made. 1,000 times harder.
I got you. But it is incredible how you win a tournament that way, and of course Johnson, might as well have won it. He played just as well, I think. But Rahm was really good yesterday, and he came out of the from behind. And that's what I think is really captured most of my attention before we get to football season, Shane, is how the PGA has gone during this pandemic, because you're seeing the best players in the world really play as if it means a lot to them. And it does, obviously, but they're really battling out there. And I certainly enjoy it so much more than some of the other things that are going on.
Yep, and it's they moved to Atlanta for the Tour Championship next week.
Yeah, Tour Championship.
Where it's a unique situation, the way the format. Dustin Johnson, since he's at the top of the FedEx standings, he starts the tournament at -10. Rahm starts at -8, and so on and so on. So Billy Horschel, former Gator, kind of sweated through it. He made it as the last player, the 30th player. So he will be there. Be another great tournament as well. Now, JC, college football.
Yes, sir.
Did you sit down and get some popcorn and chicken wings and watch Central Arkansas come from behind and beat the Governors of Austin Peay?
I did. I watched some of it. I was recovering from a long day at the Golden Eagle Country Club in Tallahassee, Florida, where I was invited to play and a member guest. And I certainly enjoyed seeing footballs flying in the air and kids hitting each other. It's shocking, isn't it, how we were told by so many of the great journalists in sports media how contact and practicing in pads was going to be so dangerous and so awful. And here these guys are playing a game while Penn State and Michigan are watching. And it just brings me to a much bigger point. And that point is, of course, that if we look at polls, there are 9 teams ranked in the preseason poll that are not playing this fall. And obviously they are all in the Pac-12 and Big 10 or 14 or whatever it wants to be. And it's just great to see these smaller schools just throw it out there and show the world that it can be done. And I'm really, really glad and encouraged that in just a little less than a month, hopefully, you can't really count your chickens, but hopefully we will see the big boys playing in the South. And
you will. They're going to be playing. I don't know why there's any question that they're not going to be playing football, because they are.
Come on, Shay. Shay, this is COVID-19 world that we're living in for some reason.
Well, I don't know if you saw. Did you see where the CDC came out and said that only 6% of the 153,000 deaths were recorded were due to COVID? That's only around 9,000. The other 94% had to do with serious illnesses and advanced age. So my point is they're going to play football. And there may be a few athletes that contract the virus, but you know what they're going to do? They're going to quarantine them, and they're going to keep playing, just like the PGA Tour did, just like every other league is doing. It's really no different than having the flu. I think the data is coming out now. They're finding more stuff out. But anyway, it was great. The first play of the game, the Governors of Austin Peay go like 78 yards for a touchdown run. I thought it was outstanding. There was only about 1,500 people in the stands because that's all that was allowed. But that's what you're going to see. High school football was all over ESPN. They had 12 hours of straight coverage of high school football around the country. Packed stadiums. People, some wore masks, some didn't. But, it's back to normal for the most part until you have the full arenas full. So I'm excited. You will be seeing football, and it's a shame that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 has zero chance of playing. Now these folk, I almost said something I shouldn't say. These folks in the Big Ten now are saying they're going to start football in Thanksgiving.
November.
So my question to you, JC, is because you keep up to date with what's going on in the world more than I do. Why in the hell in Thanksgiving is it safer to play football than it is right now?
Because that's after the election. This is so political. It's ridiculous how political this is. And we made that point, QB. You and I both made the point a month ago or whenever I was on previously that we have liberal Democratic governors in Illinois, in Minnesota, in Wisconsin, and certainly that the czar of Michigan, that awful woman Whitmer, who have basically made this happen. And Kevin Warren is just a pawn. He is just playing to the tune of his overlords. They have in the Big Ten presidents and chancellors receiving over $13 million in taxpayer salaries, and yet they canceled fall sports without even having to tell taxpayers how they freaking voted. In fact, we don't even know if there was a vote because the Ohio State chancellor, president, whatever she is, she gets paid $1.4 million, and she wasn't even sure there was a vote, nor was somebody in one of the other states up there. It is disgusting. I played golf this weekend with one of the most fervent and avid Ohio State Buckeye fans you will ever know, and you know who I'm talking about. And I call him Buckeye. And this guy is absolutely devastated, and I can only imagine that if his son Justin played for the Buckeyes, Okay, how proud he would have been on that day he signed to play for the Buckeyes, whether it was last year or 2 years prior, to be told by this clown that's running this conference, by these politicians who are running the states, that, oh, well, you know what? We can let the high school kids play. The freaking Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals can play. But no, the Ohio State University cannot play. And I don't even know if they play football in Detroit where the Lions are, but they're going to get to be able to play. But the Wolves are not going to play, and Sparty's not going to play, at least until November. And that's just a shock to me, isn't it?
Well, what's crazy is in the state of Pennsylvania, and you mentioned the state of Ohio, you got all the professional teams playing. You also have the Cincinnati Bearcats, the Temple Owls, and the Pitt Panthers playing, and all high schools. So the only two teams associated with football in the state of Pennsylvania and Ohio that are not playing is Penn State, the Nittany Lions, and the Buckeyes. So I feel terrible for those kids. I was very hard on Kevin Warren on my show about how you can come out. I mean, this is clearly he's doing what he is told. He's saying what he is told to say because again, this all went down roughly 3-4, I don't know how many weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Okay. How you can sit there nationally and say we are not playing football, but again, your own son is playing at Mississippi State. That clearly tells you everything you need to know right there.
Well, and I'll tell you, it was embarrassing to see guys like Mike Greenberg on ESPN and people like this just throw softball after softball to this guy during the interview on the day or two after he made that decision, because they were scared to ask him the real tough questions or the questions that had to be asked. And that's an embarrassment. But, we've got a season canceled to this point without having a single padded practice. 12 of the 14 campuses are open this fall. They will have they will ask players to play 20 plus games potentially in 2021 if they wait until the spring, which they're saying now November, sure. And then when players are expected to come to the facility to train, they've got them in there working, but we're not working for football games. So they should be ashamed of themselves. It's an utter dumpster fire. And let's talk about the guys who are playing. Let's just focus on the teams and the universities who know how to handle this, who have leadership, that are running the policies. And I'm really happy to see that at least we've got this to look forward to, and these players as well, because really the football is about the players, and of course the fans make it so much better. So I just think that it's great to see. I saw also, QB, I saw one of our local football coaches in the North Central Florida area, John Brantley down in Ocala, lined up with all his stud players. Those offensive linemen, I don't know if you had a chance to see this, and I'm bringing it up because it goes toward the theme of playing football here in the state of Florida. And I saw the Trinity Catholic offensive line. My God, how many did you say of those players are going to Division I football teams? Because they look like they look like college. All five.
So, yeah, I mean they average about 6'4", 285. That's an average.
Yeah, that's and they're high school seniors. And the thing about it is, at least they are getting the opportunity to enjoy their senior year on the field.
Yeah, like I said, I watched tons of high school football, and it was fun for me to watch. I love watching that, even though it wasn't Friday nights. It was Saturday mornings and Saturday afternoons. But we're going to be playing football. Everybody, pretty much part of the state of Florida kicks off Friday night, the first games of the season. A lot of other states, as we all know, have already been playing. Also, JC, let's talk a little bit about, college football is cranking up. Thursday night of this week is when the season, it kicked off Saturday night, but your first, not even Power 5, although I want to consider them being Power 5 now that the other two schools dropped out. But your Southern Miss, South Alabama play Thursday. Central Arkansas, who played Saturday night, has to turn around, and they're playing again this Thursday. So they're not scared. They're going to travel wherever they got to travel to play football. It's definitely cranking up this week. And then I want to say on Labor Day, we have BYU versus the Midshipman of the Naval Academy are playing.
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere, and it's good to see that those schools, even without a conference, are finding games to play. Obviously, Thursday you've got a bunch of games, smaller schools that are playing. Shane, it gets you. Well, many are canceled and postponed, but there are a couple that are playing, like you said, South Alabama. So okay, I see what you're saying, because the rest of these games have been canceled. All right. So
they're canceled because it's other the Big Ten and the Pac-12 folks, and all the other smaller conferences aren't playing.
Right, they won't play, and that makes sense. Okay, well, I looked at that, and I'll tell you, here's NC State and Louisville. Why are they canceled, Shane?
No, because when they redid the scheduling, because that was scheduled before COVID came along and all that, so they had to redo the ACC scheduling.
That's right. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, and I knew this. I don't know why I'm looking at this app that's wrong, but that's my fault. Okay, but we have football to look forward to. We have, and in the NFL, the Texans will be opening with Kansas City. Correct? That's coming up in a week or so. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
a week from this Thursday.
So, we've got the golf, we've got the football on a smaller scale right now, but at least something. We've got the high schools engaged, and locally we're going to see football. So this was a close call, man. And let's just hope it goes the way we're hoping it will, and the way I think it will. That number you mentioned about the CDC showing comorbidity and 6,000 people dying of COVID-only related illnesses is really just underscores, I think, what has happened politically and with this virus that has just changed so much of our lives and really disrupted so many good things that were happening before it came. And hopefully we will see some things start to slowly get better. And I think we are.
Yep. JC, so I'm going to let you give a little NHL rundown of what's going on in the playoffs. Have you watched any NBA playoffs?
No, because they didn't want to play at first, and then when they didn't want to play because of their protest, which again is political, it gets to that point, and you can't avoid it. It's part of the sports world.
Didn't your hockey guys cancel games
but
too?
The hockey guy, there were 2 games canceled. They replayed them this weekend overnight, or last night. NBA, to me, Shane, I'm just having a hard time with it. I don't know why. I don't know why I don't want to watch it. That's what I'm trying to say. I kind of want. I want to watch guys play sports. I like to watch the up and down, but there are external things that are just bugging me about that. Hockey, I'm having very little problem, if any, watching, because I think these guys are focused on playing the game. In the NBA, I don't think it's all about the game anymore. So if it's not about the game, it's about other things that are infiltrating the game. And that's self-inflicted. That's what they've chosen to do. That's a choice. Well, I have a choice too, and I choose maybe not to watch it. So I haven't watched much of that. I have seen where the Boston Celtics, the team I used to really like, who I guess I still like, have, I think, surprised many people with the way they handled Toronto in that game yesterday, or this weekend, and the way they just swept through Philadelphia. I was very surprised to see that. Clearly, they say the Clippers and the Lakers are the 2 best teams. I guess so. We're playing in Orlando. But the point is that I think hockey has captured more interest for me because I see more of the activity actually being played on the ice. More things matter on the field of play for those guys, it seems like to me. Now, golf, of course, is number 1. Football will be number 1. And I'm just, trying to get as much as I can because we all remember what it was like this summer, Shane. In May, June, and July, we all remember what it was like. And now we've got things happen, and we got the U.S. Open coming here in 3 weeks. So the Tour Championship next week, U.S. Open 3 weeks, football coming up. My gosh, it's going to get great. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it is. I've watched a little bit of the NBA here and there, but as you mentioned, nobody really watches. Their viewership, the percentage is just plummeted. Recently, I saw the numbers, but I don't have them in front of me, but it was not good. So JC, don't concern. I wanted to bring this up to you. Jamar Chase, who's probably maybe the best player in college football. He is opting out. I don't blame him one bit. I don't blame him one bit because he is going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Do you think more players are going to do this?
Well, I don't know, because I think Jamar Chase is one of those rare players that you just mentioned, and he doesn't have Joe Burrow throwing it to him in practice right now. And he may have thought to himself, because he could have announced this a long time ago, but after a couple practices or whatnot, he his parents probably got with him, and his dad probably said, look, man, you don't have anything to prove. You've got your ring in college football, championship banner hanging in your bedroom. You don't have anything to prove. Go get the money and stay healthy and stay in shape. And that's exactly what he's done. And I think if he were my son, I would probably said the same thing. You're not going to it cannot get any better for LSU than how it got last year. It will never get any better ever for LSU, or maybe for any team, than it was last year. So the point of moving on makes a lot of sense to me. I can't blame the kid. He's trying to make a living playing sports. You have a very tight window, as you know, to do that. And he's going to take advantage of the opportunity that obviously people have told him he's going to get when we get to the draft, which is not far away, 7 months, 8 months. So that kind of thing matters. And I think he made the right decision for him. And I don't think there's one person at Louisiana State that blames him. And I think they ought to send him off with a parade, just like Alabama sent Derrick Henry off, and Tua Tagovailoa, and Florida sent away some of their great players of the past off to the NFL after their great accomplishments. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's probably only one other player that I can think of off the top of my head that could do what he's doing, and you're going to be one of the top 3 picks in the draft. That's Trevor Lawrence.
Well, of course, it's Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor said he wants to play. Yeah, he wants to play his junior. Yeah, and I don't think
he wants to win another national title is what he wants to do.
Well, he's going to have to. I think his odds just got a lot better with these idiots in the Big Ten. So obviously, and I say that because I think Ohio State was a legitimate threat to win the national title if they had been able to field a team. Ryan Day's a great coach. I actually think Ohio State was better than Clemson last year, even though they lost in that game. I thought they were the better team. So, no, I think Trevor makes a good decision. Look, I really respect what Trevor Lawrence did with the leadership he showed the moment they were starting to hack sports. The moment the Big Ten and the Pac-12 tried to destroy the fall season, hoping that everybody would just get in line like they tend to do in that part of the country. I'm so glad that Trevor Lawrence spoke up for the players, because they don't have agents, Shane. Somebody's got to say something. The coaches aren't going to say anything. They're getting paid by mom and by the university. The players had to do it, and Trevor took that leadership role. I got a lot of respect for that kid, not just as a player, but for the way he's shown leadership and getting his feelings known. Because he was trending pretty hot that day. He came out and said, look, we've got to play. It's more dangerous for us not to play than play.
JC, did you happen to watch any of the NASCAR race Saturday?
Well, I missed it. I'm sorry.
You missed it. Well, the reason I bring it up is because I think that was their largest crowd that they've had of spectators. I think it was around 40,000 there in Daytona.
I heard that, yes.
And it's interesting to me because they've been having racing now, gosh, for over a month, and they've increased their spectators, little by little. And, you're looking at 40,000. I know Daytona International Speedway holds 180, somewhere around there, probably.
It's a lot, 200,000 easily. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking, the capacity of these stadiums in the SEC, majority of them, I would say we average around 85, 90,000. You take the Mississippi schools out in Vanderbilt and maybe Missouri and Arkansas. Yeah. Why you can't put almost 40 or 50,000 people in these arenas? I don't see any danger in it at all.
Well, there isn't any, but they are choosing to err on the side of caution. They want to tread slowly here. Getting the players on the field is the primary objective. And I agree with you. I think these stadiums are cavernous. They're monstrous. They're bigger than the NFL stadiums. They're bigger. And they're bigger in terms of capacity. Let's go there. And so there's a way you could have done it. Now, the logistics of the tickets and the clubs and this and that and all the things that go into a college football experience on game day at the stadium may have just not been they couldn't have figured it out, although they had 4 months over the summer to try and figure out how to do it. I just don't think anybody knew. Nobody knew where we would be in August back in May. They could have thought about, well, let's plan where we could be in August should it not get better, say, when it was May. But I think what happened was people wanted to react instead of be proactive in this case, and that's exactly what the Southeastern Conference did. They reacted to what the Big Ten decided to do, and they chose to go their own path in their own way. Not the Big Ten, the ACC. The SEC reacted to what the ACC did. The ACC threw down and said, we're going to play. And that's what they were, I think, primarily focused on. But to your initial question about the fans, I think they absolutely could put more people in the stadium. I just don't know how they would figure out who would be allowed and who wouldn't. Maybe you could go all general admission. I don't know what it would be like having people say, sure, we're going to go watch a game with a mask on in September, even though it's late September. October can be hot as well, especially in this part of the country. So I think that
once you get into the stadium, you don't have to wear the mask.
Well, you would have
unless you go to the bathroom or walk around to the concession stand, from what I've been told. But anyway, JC, we're out of town. Yeah. We're out of town, my man.
We're out of time.
Appreciate you joining us today.
We'll be back.
Be back Wednesday. And today's show's a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Hey, folks, be safe out there. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
All right.